Hey guys, what's up? My name is Crystal and I'd like to share. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So today we're talking about can you be pro-black and still date white, right? So this is always like an ongoing topic. People are always talking about it. So let me weigh in. Can you be pro-black and still date outside your race? I don't believe so, right? I believe that you can date, like, first of all, let me start here. I don't have anything against like interracial dating or anything like that. I feel like if a black person wants to date outside of their race, then they're free to do so and they shouldn't be judged upon that, right? Love is not defined by like color. I know that a lot of people have a hard time dealing with that, but you know, you can't help who you like and who you fall in love with, right? But do I believe that you can be pro-black and date white or date outside your race? No, I don't think so, because you aren't building within a black household, right? You can still support black initiatives. You can still be proud to be a black person for yourself, right? But I just think that you are not, you're not pro-black, you know, because your life, like your intimate, like your personal life doesn't reflect that, right? So I think that if you're someone that defines yourself as being pro-black, then that means that extends to your dating life. That means that extends to your marriage and just about everything else within like your life, right? So what got me thinking about this topic actually is something that I went through within the last 5 years. Like, this was like recent, guys. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, this is like something that happened to me recently. And if you're new to the channel, what I do here is I share like personal stories from my life, you know, just to get the conversation started about things that people oftentimes have a difficult time talking about aloud or whatever. So, all right, I'd like to share. So, a couple of years ago, within the last 5 years, as I stated, I had jury duty, right? So, I went to like my jury duty and I got selected for like this trial or whatever. And there was like this white girl like that was within on the jury with me, and it's like, she's cute. Like, I was, and you know, it's not that I've not been attracted to people outside my race before, because I've dated casually, interracially before. But when it comes to like all of like my serious like relationships, like I've only always dated like, I mean, well, been in serious relationships with like black people. Like, when I was dating like interracially, and it wasn't like heavy, but the few times that I did do it, it was just always like casual dating, you know. It wasn't like really anything serious or whatever. So I'm like, I'm attracted to like this white girl, this white woman that's on like the jury, right? And it kind of like, you know, kind of like catches me off guard a little bit, because it's like at a time in my life when I'm like really serious about building some things. I have like my platform I'd like to share. So to give you a little bit of history on, I'd like to share like the aesthetics that like you see now, like the background and even like the logo. This is all new, like within like the last year. I'd like to share is actually a platform that I've been working on for like the past couple of like years. And but within like the past year, I decided like to just like really like revamp everything, change up like the logo and just like everything that went along with it. So, but this jury that I'm on, like, this happens during like this time while I'm building like this platform I'd like to share. So immediately, guys, like, I have to be honest with you, like, I felt like a hypocrite. Like, I had like these like a rush of like emotions, and it's like, Crystal, like, how, like, you know, like, you're building like this platform that has everything to do with black people sharing like their stories. you have this online film studio that you're trying to build out, and it deals with like black media. Like, where, like, how do you rationalize like this aspect of you, right? So it brought out like all of like these difficult like emotions, and I was like, wow, like, it just really got me like thinking about, how do people feel who date black people? How do black people feel who date interracially very seriously? Because you have some black people who just only date like interracially for some reason, but for whatever reason. But like, how do like they feel? Do they feel like hypocritical, or people like me, who just kind of like find themselves like in the middle? Like, how do you feel like when these feelings like come up, right? So to make a long story short about like this jury duty or whatever, I never ended up getting like her number or anything, and that's just because on the day of deliberations, we had like our lunch break or whatever, and I went to like my lunch break, and I came back, and I'm not gonna lie, guys, like I came back early because like I was trying to sit by her or whatever. So like, she could see like my deductive reasoning, my critical thinking skills, how I go about going, trying to like figure things out, and because up until that point, like I want to say, like, if I'm not mistaken, I think like that trial lasted like almost like a week or something like that. So she would come in and she would like speak to me like every like morning or whatever before like the trial or whatever. So, but the only reason why I ended up not getting her telephone number is because there was another black guy that was on jury duty with me also, and he ended up sitting right beside me on the day of deliberations, and I had specifically kind of like set like this empty chair off for her because I knew that she always sat like in this spot. And when he sat there, I was like, oh my God, like this is not the day for like this kumbaya moment, because black people, we tend to like kind of like congregate and stick together, especially like when we're in areas where like there's a whole lot of white people or whatever. So I was like, oh man, I was like, this is not the day for this. Like, I'm trying to like get like the number or whatever. So but yeah, so after like deliberations or whatever, after like the trial ended or whatever, the judge ended up coming back to in chambers to like talk to us. So, and a couple of people stuck around after the trial to talk to the judge. So I was like, I'm not sticking around for all this. And she was one of the people, and I was like, I'm ready to go home. So I left. I didn't get her number or whatever. But but yeah, so that situation just made me think about the complexities that go along with like dating interracially as like a black person. Like, how do black people who date interracially feel, because I think that a lot of times they are accused of being like a sellout. They're oftentimes accused of not being really for black people or whatever. And I just don't really think that's the case. I think that you can't help. I mean, I believe that you could be intentional about who you choose to date. Like, you could say, I'm only going to date black people, and that's your choice to do so, right? But I mean, this is just real life, guys. Like, you cannot help who you're attracted to. You can't help who you love, You could choose who you want to date. You could choose who you want to marry. But you can't necessarily control the matters of the heart. You can't control who you fall in love with, When Cupid hits, it hits, right? So, when I think about like this situation, I always think, that I think that when it comes to black people who find themselves in this situation, instead of being caught in like the crosshairs and trying to like, explain to people whether or not they're pro-black or whatever the situation may be, I think that they should just accept it for what it is. I think that for me, if I found myself in an interracial relationship, I would just be like, like, I'm not pro-black because my life does not reflect that. My life doesn't reflect that. If I'm in a relationship with a white person, my life does not reflect that I'm pro-black. That doesn't mean that I don't support black initiatives. That doesn't mean that that I don't like being black or anything like that, or I don't love being black. That just is just what it is. I'm not pro-black. So I always find it strange when I see black people that say that they're pro-black and they're in interracial relationships. I think that is better if they just say, hey, like, I'm not pro-black, but I support black initiatives. I love black people. I love being black. I think to say that you're pro-black is just kind of like I think that there's some type of hypocrisy there. I just think that there's something hypocritical about it. But yeah, guys, like, that's like my take on like this subject. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think about my story, or what do you think about this subject in general? Get in the comment section and share your thoughts. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video, and I will most definitely see you in the next.